Montana, iCarly, Wizards of Waverly Place kicked off and really changed the complexion of children's television programming for many years to come. Some of these shows have gone anywhere from 1 to 6, sometimes 7 seasons. I know Wizards of Waverly Place is one of the longest running Disney shows, but iCarly has virtually surpassed every single one of these shows. And I think that's a quality that very few children's shows have been able to possess. You take Hannah Montana that only went 4 seasons, and here's iCarly in their 6th season, approaching their final season, and it's going to be amazing seeing how the season commences and how the final product of the show comes forth, and what kind of things are going to happen up until the final show. How are the cast of iCarly going to go their separate ways, and how will iCarly produce its final show? Usually, the final show of a program that's ran for several years includes a lot of highlights from past editions of the show. It's usually an hour long, and I alluded to the fact here last week that I wouldn't be surprised if this wasn't turned into a Nickelodeon original movie. I know Victoria Justice has one coming out specifically designed for Halloween called Fun Size, so why not make iCarly into a Nickelodeon original movie? And the reason I say that is because iCarly never had a chance to make it to the big screen. They weren't fortunate enough, like the Disney show Hannah Montana, that had an hour-and-a-half film produced for theatrical purposes. I would have loved to have seen iCarly turned into a full-length motion picture, and there was no excuse for this not being turned into a full-length motion picture, and it wasn't like Nickelodeon couldn't have written a script specifically for a theatrical version of this thing. I really think that a lot more could have been done. They recently just had their final video game produced for the Nintendo DS called Groovy Foodie. It is available everywhere now. It's produced by D3 Publishing, a fantastic software production company. I would have loved to have seen a video game produced for this show on the Xbox 360 Connect and the Nintendo Wii. We never got that. We never got a movie. We never got as much merchandise as iCarly deserved. Why are certain shows, here's a question I have for our listening audience, why are certain shows publicized and advertised more than others? Why is it that one show seemingly takes all the credit? And I've described Miranda Cosgrove as somebody who is, quote, over-promoted. I've said this 1,000 times on the last probably 100 shows of HEW Entertainment Radio. I can't formulate an explanation or put together a reasonable one as to why Miranda Cosgrove was over-promoted more so than Big Time Rush, who are publicized significantly well, but why is she taking all the credit? Why is she taking it away from potential stars like Victoria Justice, who I've described as the greatest of all time on our Twitter, on her social media sites, and on the internet in written columns? Why is it that one show is taking all the credit? If it had not have been for Nickelodeon, could we have seen other stars like Victoria Justice or the Britney Spears' sister, Jamie Lee Spears? How come we couldn't have seen them produced more? How come we couldn't have seen them receive the same amount of credit as Miranda Cosgrove? That's why I, raised the issue in a lot of letters that I wrote to Nickelodeon when I was trying to get Victorious a better time slot. That's why I consistently brought up the idea of Miranda Cosgrove being over-promoted. A lot of you may disagree with me on saying that Miranda Cosgrove has been over-promoted, because a lot of you out there are probably die-hard Miranda Cosgrove fans, and I'm not going to lie to you. We are following her on Twitter, and we've liked her on our Facebook page. We're keeping up with all the conversation and all the topics that Miranda Cosgrove are throwing our way. The thing is, I just think that she's been receiving too much publicity, and it's been unnecessary publicity that she doesn't need. And if it wasn't for that, I think that things like Big Time Rush and Victorious probably could have succeeded in the way of an iCarly show. So with iCarly finally calling it quits now, is this the first sign of positivity for shows like Victorious and Big Time Rush? I think capitalization is a big thing, because now they can capitalize on the opportunity that's been thrown their way to be publicized and reach the status of an iCarly show. But with the following that iCarly has had, is it going to be possible to surpass what they've done and all the guest stars that have dropped by for editions of iCarly? We've seen everyone from David Archuleta to One Direction to Michelle Obama, the wife of the President of the United States, the Plain White Tees, Victoria Justice on several editions of iCarly. We have seen it all done on iCarly, and it has been a show that has received more publicity than perhaps any Dan Schneider and his company Dan Rap have produced. where are Nickelodeon headed? Getting rid of their biggest show can be looked at as a risk, and it can also be looked at an opportunity time for a lot of television shows who haven't received the publicity that they wanted. I think that we're going to see Nickelodeon shows get to that level now with iCarly stepping down. So this can be looked at in a bad way, and it can also be looked at in a good way. I think, if you ask me, my personal opinion and belief on all of this, I think that the show Victorious and Victoria Justice herself will be the next in line to receive the same amount of publicity that Miranda Cosgrove has for all these years. I recently saw a documentary called All Access with Miranda Cosgrove, and it was a very detailed look at the career of Miranda Cosgrove and how much she had accomplished. She has perhaps accomplished more than any Nickelodeon star that we've seen come through the doors of Nickelodeon for the last several years, and there are thousands of people who audition for companies like Nickelodeon. There's a company in Ohio called Applause Entertainment, and literally thousands of children show up to be given an opportunity to audition for companies like Disney and Nickelodeon, and they pick the best of the best. They jam about 700 children into a room. If you haven't seen any of these audition processes, you've missed out on a lot. It's an unbelievable experience to behold. They jam about 700 children into a room. They give you different scripts to audition, and they pick the best of the best. And I think that, they definitely picked a gift with Miranda Cosgrove, and she's going to be a tremendous loss. So Nickelodeon's really going to have to start creating stars a lot quicker than they probably have in the past, because losing a show like iCarly can be looked at as a major gamble. It's going to be really emotional for a lot of fans of the show, because I know there are people out there who will prefer Miranda Cosgrove's acting over someone like, a Miley Cyrus or a Debbie Ryan, who recently just had a show Jessie created by the Disney company after she finished up a run with Sweet Life on Deck back in 2011. Here's the thing about Miranda Cosgrove that I admired. It was the ability to separate acting from music. Very few people are able to do that. I know Victoria Justice has not been able to do that. I don't want to see Victoria Justice do that, because I think that her acting and her music kind of transist with one another. In addition to that, we see a lot of Nickelodeon stars be able to make their music and their acting work together. But the unique thing about Miranda Cosgrove, the unique quality that she possesses, is the ability to separate her musical career, which receives a tremendous amount of publicity. We've seen that for the last several years, from her acting career. There were probably maybe 2 editions of iCarly where I saw her actually perform. The Victorious original movie that they did with the cast of iCarly, she performed a song with Victoria Justice, which was a mix of the Victorious and iCarly theme songs, Leave It All to Shine. It was a great song. Our radio station has played it occasionally. We don't play it enough, I will admit to you that, but I think that it was a great song, and hearing Victoria Justice and Miranda Cosgrove collaborate the mixes of the songs, Leave It All to Me and Make It Shine, it was fun. And there was one edition of iCarly, I think, in season 4, where they had the I Do, which was a adaptation of a wedding where she sang the song Shakespeare, which became one of Miranda Cosgrove's #1 hits. I think it's been fun watching the career of Miranda Cosgrove excel to the heights of stardom and exceed everyone's expectations. I think that she's someone who has definitely come a long way and who is guaranteed a profitable future, more than Jeanette McCarthy or Nathan Cross, who I have no idea where they're headed. Hopefully they're going to remain with Nickelodeon for an additional few years and potentially even have their own shows. Usually when a cast separates, several of the cast members are either put on a different show, or one cast member specifically are given their own show. You have Jerry Trainer now with his own animated television show, Tough Puppy, that have been receiving a tremendous amount of publicity. I don't know where the other cast members are headed. I recently saw an edition of Victoria Season 3 that Jeanette McCarthy guest starred on as a obsessed character with Victoria Justice's character, Tori Vega, Pani. It was interesting seeing her in a very different role, a very different look for her. Maybe she's headed down the road of getting her own show, but is putting Jeanette McCarthy on her own television show going to be as effective as having her work with Miranda Cosgrove on iCarly? Will she be able to work as effectively with other cast members who probably she's never worked with before? Will this be the first nail in the definite coffin of Jeanette McCarthy and other stars of iCarly? Yes, they're going to be known as people who starred on iCarly at one point, and 10 years from now when they're doing media interviews, supposing it's for Jay Leno or some other talk show, they're always going to have iCarly brought up to them. It's the same thing with shows like Hannah Montana and Wizards of Waverly Place. Miley Cyrus and Selena Gomez are never going to escape the fact and idea of, them being on shows like Wizards of Waverly Place and Hannah Montana, because it's always going to be consistently brought up to them. And 10 years from now, iCarly is going to be always brought up to Miranda Cosgrove. And as long as people keep bringing it up to her, she's always going to have to talk about it. And eventually what her management company is going to have to do is they're going to have to put in the script that you're not to mention iCarly, because people are always going to bring it up to her because it was the thing that made her into a huge star. And I think that we're going to see that done for the first several years that iCarly is off air. And when the final show finally airs, there's going to be a lot of tear-jerking moments. I think that a lot of fans are never going to believe that this is over, and it's going to be several months before fans grasp the realization that this is over. I think that it's shocking. The thing about it was, it took me by such a surprise that I was just lost. I couldn't believe it. When I saw the promo for the final season of iCarly, it was like, my God, this show felt like it had been around forever, and now it's gone. It's done. Where do the cast members go? You start asking yourself a lot of questions when you see a promo for something at the final season of anything. Some of the questions you throw your way is, where are the cast members headed? What does this mean for the musical career of someone who had this God-given ability to separate acting and music into two different genres? What happens to the company Nickelodeon in its entirety? How will they rebound off losing such an incredible show like iCarly, which was significantly financially backed and probably received more publicity than any of the shows on Nickelodeon, including Drake and Josh, Victorious, Zoe 101, where Victoria Justice got her first big break in season 2 of that. We've seen very successful people come through the doors of Nickelodeon. Others have not succeeded as much as other Nickelodeon stars. But I really think that Nickelodeon are really going to have to try to create newer and even bigger stars. That's the only option they have to rebound off something like iCarly, which is going to be very difficult to do. Something that I was stowed in a lot of people's